told people we started 2:10, so we'll give them another 4 minutes and we'll do that. This is the second of what I call the lost tapes. I did a bunch of these national public universities last year, and I saved them to the cloud, and we switched to like Panopto, and so I lost like 10 or 12 of these. So we had to redo Princeton, we had to redo Harvard, redo the ones that are on the like this year, this whole year should have been liberal arts colleges, like the top Williams, Amherst, work. You see, we don't get to those until later on this semester. We actually bleed into next semester also with those. So, but these are all be archived. George is here, and he's on the Zoom, so that works.
What's up, David? What's up, Mott?
You look good, dude. Nice to see you.
What room is that? Like, is that I can't, like, that does not look familiar to me.
Yeah, I'm not placing it either, David.
Is
that
like
is the first
building?
Library. What class are you in?
David has got this new room in the basement.
Got this new room in the basement of the library. Used to be like a little hang area.
And
oh yeah, whoa, the library looks different. Yeah.
Mot George. What am I missing? Yeah, Mot George Big Ball senior 20 to 21, Harvard-Westlake 24, 25, Echoes 24, Harvard-Westlake. George, you were 21? Yeah, George was 21. Okay. We'll start in like 2 minutes, everybody.
Really?
We'll prioritize you all for questions. You know, we're parents say. Parents say like whole question. Let's see. Whatever you think is best. We might be able to. The thing is, the speaker here is
Not ideal.
not ideal. How's that sound? You guys can still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well.
Yeah, it's probably just through this. Yeah.
I'll put mine on.
Okay. And just will be careful for feedback also.
Simply get it too. But the other
All right. 2:09. We'll start in like a minute. All right. Okay. People should be able to kind of sort of see your classroom.
Yeah.
That works. 3 young ladies who are ready to make it happen. Harvard-Westlake. We'll have people spilling in. I had some kids that told me that stuff to do that they spill in. Maybe they told me they want. We had one kid, for instance, yeah, answer the box. It's just you. Like, go ahead. But you got to make sure the parents did, right? Okay, it's 2:10 now. Welcome to the second lost tape of this year. Right? We had Harvard last week. Excuse me, we had Princeton last week. We have Harvard today. I want to thank our panelists. Echo Caise. Echo, you were 24, right?
Correct.
Echo's 24. David and Mott, you were 20, right?
Yep.
And George, you were 21.
Absolutely.
Harvard-Westlake alum. George is actually right here in mud with us, making it happen. That is what we call dedication. And of course, we have our own director of teaching and learning, also a Harvard alum, Daniel Guttierrez. Daniel, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. And I'm going to correct the record slightly because I did not do my undergraduate education at Harvard, but I was in the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences pursuing my PhD in history. So I want to be faithful to my alma mater, Berkeley, and say go Bears.
Wow, there it is. Go Bears in Berkeley. I don't know. Maybe I asked the wrong guy.
No, but I
also
wear the crimson. I spent many happy years of my life in Cambridge.
Yeah, no, there we go. No, this is going to be great. So we'll have about a discussion. It'll be about 25, 30 minutes. We'll try to leave 10 to 15 minutes for questions and answers from parents and, of course, people in person. With that being said, I'd like everybody to start, the 4 panelists and our moderator, just with a brief intro, who you are, when you graduated. And I guess the question I want you to answer in mind in your intro is, when I asked you to do this panel, why you decided to say yes and do it. Go ahead and start.
David, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I just have a question. Do you know if it's possible to see the people in the room? I'm not sure if that's like the
Yeah,
type
I
that
think
can
we
share
can,
these-
right?
if you're doing that.
It's gonna be
There we go.
tough, right?
It's okay
You
if
see
not.
the young ladies, David?
Yeah, I see 3 people.
There we go.
Nice. But yeah, so I was class of 2020, Harvard-Westlake, like senior year, that was like COVID. So like all like the prom, I had the drive-through graduation with Mot, all of that. So I was class of 2020 at Harvard-Westlake. And then at Harvard, I studied economics and statistics. I was on the tennis team there. Also was on the tennis team at Harvard-Westlake. As you probably all know, we had a pretty good team at Harvard. I think on this call, well, Mott was baseball, sorry, Mott was water polo, George was baseball, and those, not to throw shade at other Harvard-Westlake sports, but I would probably say, and tennis, those are our 3 best, at least on the boys side. But yeah, so played tennis at Harvard. That was a big experience for me. Outside of that, was really into like sports analytics. I did a little bit of like some consulting clubs. And then now I've been working for a year. I work at Deloitte Consulting, doing like strategy consulting with like sports clients and life sciences. So a bunch of different experience there. And the question was, why did I do this panel, right? I mean, I think I had great experiences at Harvard-Westlake and at Harvard. And like, so, you know, both those things like, oh, it's something about that. So obviously wanted to sign up. And I think we didn't have these really back in my day at Harvard-Westlake, like hearing from recent alumni was more just like people you happen to know. And I think hearing, whether it's from Harvard or other schools, it's great that there's this panel and people can learn about the experience from recent graduates as a way to like do better research, especially for people that were in similar shoes that went to Harvard-Westlake and kind of know what it's like and grew up in similar experiences. So I think that is a very useful experience. It's great that Quasi puts together these panels.
And then the next person on my screen is Echo.
Yeah. So I graduated Harvard-Westlake pretty recently. I'm a sophomore in college now. So some of you guys might have been on campus at the same time as me, but Harvard-Westlake has done so much for me. So whenever I have the chance to give back, something I would love to do. At Harvard, I'm studying the history of science, and I was on the rowing team, but I've since quit, exploring things like the Music Business Association, the Real Estate Investment Group, and I'm actually working at a clean energy finance firm right now that I got the job actually from the help of Mr. France, working for a Harvard-Westlake alum.
And then George, you're next on my screen.
Hey everyone, I'm George Cooper. I was class of 2021. I was a baseball player here. Kind of early on in my high school experience, I was getting into the arts. I actually just said what up to Mr. Godoy at the pottery department. I was really, trying to find my passion while sports was kind of getting me to that next place academically. And when I got to college, I continued doing that. I studied music there and really kind of got into the art community and film community. And reason being, me helping out with this panel, it's always nice to have a little preparation and to know what you're going to expect going into something, something like Harvard, something that I would compare a lot to Harvard-Westlake. And, people that have done it before, it's nice to just get a little toe in the water and kind of know what to expect. So yeah, happy to be here.
Mott, you're up.
Hey guys, my name is Mot Stothart. I graduated in 2020 with David, so it was that weird COVID season. At Harvard, I did environmental engineering. Kind of coming into the school, I wanted to do something related to environmental science, and there's a public policy track and an engineering track. So I gravitated towards the engineering side of things. At school, I was a water polo player. I was a recruited water polo athlete, which was a pretty huge part of my experience. Harvard-Westlake has a great team, and my experience with the team and at the school at Harvard-Westlake was pretty fantastic. So then moving to Harvard, it was a very similar experience, like George said. The two schools are very comparable in a lot of ways. So yeah, wanted to address the panel. I actually just found out about it yesterday, to be completely honest. So I'm glad I'm here, and I'm glad I can kind of talk a little bit about the engineering side of things. The engineering school at Harvard's relatively kind of new and somewhat kind of slept on. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit as well.
Great. And as Quasi said, I'm Daniel Guttierrez. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning at Harvard-Westlake. It's a relatively new position, so it probably didn't exist when many of you were here. And I'm going into my 4th year, and I help align the curriculum between the middle and the upper school and run professional development trainings for teachers and help coordinate creation of academic policies. And as I alluded to earlier, I pursued my doctoral studies in history at Harvard, and was a tutor at Cabot House over in the Quad Houses. So I made that trek every day. And it's where I first developed my love of teaching and where I decided to go into secondary education. So I think that's our panel, and I'll just jump in, Quasi. Oh, and why am I on this panel? Because Quasi told me to do it and to moderate it, and I'm an agreeable person. I will jump in with our first question. Some of you have already answered this, which is basically, what is your major and why was sort of Harvard the right choice for that major? Some of you alluded to this, but maybe you could speak a little more about that. Maybe we can just go in the same order, which just by coincidence it's an alphabetical order, but that's how I have you on my screen. So starting with David.
Can you just repeat the last part of the question? Like I just cut out, my audio was not working.
Oh yeah. Well, as I said, some of you have already started to answer this one, but it was, what's your major and why was Harvard the right place to pursue that major?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I didn't know for sure what I wanted to study going in. I think it's a logical choice that most people have like a range of options. I think it's like some people go in open-minded, which is totally fine, but I think it will help you make a good decision if you know, like, okay, these are like the 2 to 3 things that I am most interested in. And it's okay to go if you're really open-minded, then target schools where like that's like kind of geared towards like people being very open-minded and exploring a lot of things. But I have an idea of like the 2 to 3 subjects you're most interested in. For me, was like economics, computer science, and like Latin a little bit from what I took at Harvard-Westlake. And so I think just like looking at the different, a little bit at like kind of like the programs, like the reputations, the type of classes, I wouldn't say I chose Harvard because of economics or statistics, but it helps that it has a really good like economics program. But I also thinking about this goes along with like your major in addition to like the type of school. It's like pre-professional versus liberal arts. I'd say Harvard is more liberal arts. I was an economics major. Yes, I'm doing business now and consulting, but nothing I learned in college I use in my job. Like critical thinking, yes, but there's no finance classes, there's no accounting, anything they offer at other like maybe more pre-professional majors if you want to do that. So just knowing like, is this the experience that's like super specific to what I want to do? And like if you want to go into finance and do accounting, then economics at Harvard is not the same thing. It's economics that you're doing in your AP economics class. So knowing like what kind of thinking, do you want something that's super pre-professional, super tailored to your interest, or do you want something that's liberal arts that is still specialized like by economics, but where you can really like use like critical thinking and kind of think at a higher level? Just know which one you want. I think Harvard definitely leans more towards like the liberal arts. Maybe Mott, who is more of like a STEM major, can answer from like the other side of how they do it in that way. But yeah, I guess it's a good segue for Mott to talk.
Well, we'll go out of order then. Mott.
Well, that's great. Yeah, that's a good setup. I'd even say, David, that even Harvard STEM majors are relatively non-pre-professional. I did an engineering degree. Of course, you have to take a range of engineering classes that are pretty standard, especially in your freshman and sophomore years. Those are the tough classes. But then as you kind of move forward, it very much becomes about, how you think about engineering. The critical thinking skills definitely come into play. My major was environmental engineering, which probably isn't as kind of hardcore engineering problem solving as like a mechanical engineering or a chemical engineering. So in environmental engineering, it was also very geared towards like, what are the problems that you want to solve? How many resources do you have? Like what kind of things can you do to solve large problems and break them down? Kind of getting back to the main question, why did I choose environmental engineering, and why was Harvard good for that? Like David said, I don't think I necessarily chose Harvard specifically for environmental engineering. I think that it has a very good program. I think if you're looking at Harvard from an engineering perspective, which I think is what I'm trying to answer here, it's kind of a bit of a complicated choice. It is a very kind of new program. They're putting a lot of money towards it. There's a lot of money going towards teachers and new buildings. But it's definitely kind of a place that is figuring itself out. I think that can be a really exciting space because it allows you to be part of like a new engineering school or a newer kind of engineering program that you join, which kind of allows you to then set your own pace and also make pretty fundamental changes in how they do things there. But if you're looking at a school like MIT, for instance, that's going to very much set you up to be a mechanical engineer so you can make parts for an aerospace company, Harvard might not be the best choice for that situation. Yeah, I think that's what I would take away. As well as that, I guess kind of coming out of Harvard-Westlake, I took APES. I really loved it with Miss Eisenkolb, and that's kind of what geared me towards doing environmental engineering. Yeah, that was the segue.
Echo?
Yeah, I mean, I came into Harvard as like an undecided major. I'm just somebody who loves to learn, which I think that Harvard is so great at helping you do. There's so many different classes you could take. My major too, history of science, like no one really knows what that is. It's pretty broad. It's just like a mix of a bunch of different classes from a lot of different disciplines. So if you're just eager to learn and grow, I think Harvard's the right place for you. I would say what makes Harvard so special is the people. Everyone around you is always doing something phenomenal, something that is interesting that you could work with them together with. So I think it's just a true place of academia that many of these pre-professional schools might not have.
Wonderful.
Mott, I don't know if you remember this, but that was a legendary apes class we had back in the day.
That was a great class. I forgot to mention you, George. Yeah, we were in that. We had a great time.
Eisenkolb.
That's how I met
How about
George.
Yeah, so I went in knowing I was going to do music. I obviously am. I guess y'all don't know this, but I'm into the business side of music and management and executive producing. For that reason, the outside of school, the outside of curriculum things at Harvard really kind of lit me up and had that space to tease out the business side of it. There's this new club, I think it's called Humba, that really they bring in music executives, really successful musicians, and it's a fun new time to be in music business at Harvard. There's a lot of at-school productions. There's a lot of amateur musicians getting into it that I was clinging to, and in terms of the school itself, the curriculum is mostly music theory, music performance, music history, which kind of beefed up every other aspect of the music world for me. And so thinking about the clubs, the outside of curriculum plus the curriculum, it was kind of the perfect storm from someone who hadn't had that much time. I was a baseball guy my whole life, so it really filled up kind of every aspect of music that I was looking to think about, and it was definitely the right choice for that reason. Also, the teachers in the music program, there's just studded with Grammy winners and jazz gods. I mean, it was really impressive. Just the breadth of the teaching staff, especially Vijay Iyer. He's nuts. There's some really talented people that it was cool to be surrounded with. So I thought I definitely made the right choice, and I didn't figure that out until after I got there. Much like
Wonderful, thank you. Cool, Caise, if you wouldn't mind muting your Zoom.
Yep,
I think
do that.
that'll cut down on the echo when George speaks. I appreciate all those answers, and certainly a lot of commonalities. One of the things I just really love about the college experience in the US is that you don't have to know what your career is going into it, and that it really opens up a lot of possibilities, and that the major doesn't always have to be aligned with the career. I grew up partially in Mexico, and in Mexico there is no word for major. You only had the word for career. So to ask somebody what their major is, you say, "What is your career? ¿Cuál es tu carrera?" And I love that that's not the case here. That there is that possibility of pursuing your passions and knowing that you can then transfer those to various fields of study. So thank you all for that. My next question is about how diverse, and you can think of diversity in any dimension, is your major, and relative to the school overall, or was your major for those of you who've graduated. And we can go popcorn style in education. You can just jump in.
I can start. Thinking about just the music program at Harvard, I didn't take many other classes. There are people from all over. There's a lot of foreign exchange students, which is very cool. And thinking about that, just the styles of music are all over the place. And it was a very fun place to be, because there's reggae people, there's cumbia, there's classical, there's the new version of classical just called new music, and there's just all these different influences around. It was a very diverse place in terms of music, especially, which helped to the overall education, and just a lot of really, really nice, cool people.
Wonderful.
History of science is also another like very diverse major, just because there's like five different sectors of it. There's like people who want to be doctors. There's people who are just interested in the history of science, like I am. There's like mind, body, brain. Like if you're trying to be a psychologist, like there's all these different pathways that you could go down, and because of that, it attracts so many different people from different cultures, races, interests, which really just like stimulates such interesting conversation and really changes the way I think on the daily.
David or Mott?
Yeah. I mean, I can go against the grain, not really, because I was saying, oh, my major is diverse. I mean, economics is the largest major. I'm pretty sure it's the largest major at Harvard. I think it's like 500 or 600. And no, you can make it what you want. Like there's like an easier track. You can do a thesis. There's all these different like tracks. And I think people joke, nobody here plays football. No one's on the football team. Like people say it's like the football major. There's a lot of football players and some other athletes include like, not, I'm saying, it's one of those people think it is, and there's like an easier way it can be, but I would say it's diverse in the sense that you have to seek out that diversity and like people who are like maybe more interested. It's because it is a big pocket of people who want to go into like investment banking or finance or consulting. I guess I technically am one of those people now, but I was also, people are also interested in like policy and like macroeconomics and like working for the government, but you have to seek it out, is what I'm saying. So it exists, but it's not like abundantly available.
How many of the graduates of your program do you think went into consulting?
I think if people on the call are actually interested, the Harvard Crimson, which is like the Harvard-Westlake Chronicle, essentially, publishes reports on what the graduating class does in careers, and you can like look it up, graduating class, if you're interested. It's really big. I think it's gotten more, not, but like over the years, like if you lump banking and consulting together, I think it's like 30%, 30, which is a lot. And a lot of that, so economics within that would probably be 50% or so. Maybe not. I mean, I'm overstating it, but it's definitely a huge chunk, and it's grown. But if you're interested, you can find the exact number. I think it's available.
Mott?
Yeah, David, my team was like 70-80% economics. So yeah, environmental engineering and kind of the engineering program in general, it's pretty diverse in terms of what you can try to study. I think there's a real encouragement to look, kind of chase what you want to be, what you're interested in. I think within certain majors like mechanical engineering, the kind of more traditional engineering disciplines, you may have less opportunities for diversity. You're kind of going to be designing parts, and that's going to be pretty standard. But even within those majors, you see a lot of different thesis projects. I think the thesis within engineering is awesome. Like every engineer has to write a thesis, and there are a ton of different ideas that come out of it. A lot of them are very, very interesting. And I think that's a real place where you see a ton of diversity because that's where students are actually allowed to go out on a limb and do what they want to do. Within environmental engineering specifically, I thought it was a very interesting major because environmental is a very vague term. It's a very vague major. It's also a very new major. It's something like 4 or 5 years old. So there's a real breadth. There's like different professors that will do things from water to air quality to building sustainability. So there's a real breadth in terms of what you actually can study within that environmental engineering major, which for me was great. I will say it makes it harder to like get a job. I think it's more difficult when you don't have a specific trade in engineering, when you can't come out and say, oh, well, I did specifically this, and this is what I'm good at. This is what I can bring to your company. So I think you want to specify yourself a little bit, but having options is fantastic, especially within engineering, which is generally pretty constrained.
Did we get everybody? I'm not skipping anybody. Okay. Switching tracks a little bit. What did you do during the summer, specifically after your sophomore and junior year? Was it related to your major? Was it completely unrelated? How did you spend those summers? If you wouldn't mind sharing.
This is sorry to clarify, but college or high school?
Oh, I'm sorry, college. Yes, college.
Okay. That's a very Harvard-Westlake mindset. Because that's like only a Harvard-Westlake kid would say that. Most people went to school did not have internships, but I know probably people on this call did, and people in the room right now did something during their summers. No shame in not doing anything, but that's a very Harvard-Westlake like answer. But anyway, I guess we can go. So sophomore year, I worked for a sports betting startup, which was really cool. It was in New York, but it was a pretty small team. That's called Lucra Sports. There is no Harvard-Westlake connection, no. And then my junior summer, I worked at Deloitte as like one of those like summer internships, and then took a full-time offer with them. So kind of like two different sides of the spectrum, like something I was like, my passion is sports and something I probably want to do long-term versus like a job you do out of school. You learn a lot, you build foundational skills. So yeah, I think that's like good advice. Like people like might be, especially coming from Harvard-Westlake, you want to get like a big job like as soon as you can. But I think it's good to like, especially as you're like, freshman, sophomore year, to like explore something outside your comfort zone. Not outside your comfort zone, but something you wouldn't be able to do, until later on, because there really is no risk.
Echo?
Yeah, well, I'm not quite there yet. But
right, you said you were in your sophomore year, is that right?
I am, yeah. I just started my
so maybe
sophomore
what would
year.
you like to do?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. I'm very interested in the energy space, so maybe checking out Houston, trying to do some finance down there. So that's where I hope to end up, but you never know. Yeah.
George?
So I've been all over the place. I manage up and coming artists, and I've been doing that for 3 or 4 years. I worked for a startup mixed media company, influencer marketing company called TCC Entertainment, and that fell out kind of right after winter break of sophomore year. And so scrambling for a job, I actually came out to Cali during that winter break and just got a meeting with everyone I knew, everyone my parents knew. And it turned out the internship for the next 2 summers and my eventual job right now came from a dad at HW. His name's Ron Lafitte, legendary music manager. And I was actually at the baseball field, the last place you'd think, just hanging out and telling the coaches what I was up to. They're like, dude, you got to meet this guy Lafitte. Maybe he knows someone. And I got on the phone with him, told him, what I've been up to. I was managing up and comers. And he was like, dude, just come work for me. And so I interned for him for the last 2 years, and now I'm his development coordinator doing film industry side for his music management group. So very blessed. And it's funny that it came from the HW network for sure.
Well, thank you. What a great plug for Harvard-Westlake. Mot? Sorry, excuse me, Mot.
No worries. I worked for two engineering firms. So my sophomore year, I worked for an air quality focused firm, sort of where I was doing a lot of essentially kind of active air monitoring. So that was a lot of programming, understanding how certain cities' air quality functions. And then for my my junior summer, I was working kind of with more of a sanitation engineering. So I was doing, how buildings manage their waste and how they essentially, how public health works within Los Angeles specifically. I ended up staying with the second company. Now I'm an energy engineer. I'm at work at the moment. We don't usually wear suits. It's a special day. But yeah, I've been working with this firm for now 6 months. And so I do a lot of work around helping buildings reduce their carbon imprint. And that also usually leads to cost savings. So yeah.
Well, thank you. This next question, I had to chuckle when I saw it because I was trying to think how I would answer it, and the answer is I don't remember. But to the extent, and I don't know if that's an age thing, but to the extent that you're comfortable sharing, what did you write about in your college essay? You're closer to your college application years than I am, so perhaps you'll have a better memory. And I won't call on anybody because I know that just in case if you prefer to say, or like me, your memory is failing you. But
I'll jump on this one. So another close shout out to HW. The thought of community service and that being interwoven into your curriculum and doing that. I actually found something I really enjoyed. Me and my uncle would head over to LA Kitchen on the weekends, which is the soup kitchen in downtown, and we kind of fell in love with it. Just the thought of a purpose beyond yourself, but also cooking. It's fun and it's rewarding, and you meet people there, and just the thought of that experience, that bonding with my uncle, the impact, and also just the LA homelessness was kind of the ecosystem I was writing about for my college essay.
Wonderful, thank you. I love the reference to the mission statement.
Yeah, for my essay, I was just writing about my love for learning pretty much. I talked a lot about how my junior summer I'd done like 7 weeks in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, learning Russian, which was just so much fun, but also um, like it was so brutal, and then how that just shaped my love for learning, and yeah.
Well, our last question is, and I think I can anticipate the answer to this, but it's, do you feel that, Harvard is preparing you or has prepared you or did prepare you for your career and in life? And I'm going to guess the answer is yes. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the ways and maybe the unexpected ways or the surprising ways in which it set you up for what you're doing. David, you want to start us off?
Sure. Well, the precursor to this question is how Harvard-Westlake prepares you for everything. And I think, honestly, more than Harvard, in some ways, especially when it comes to like time management and like managing different things and just productivity and like that in the workplace, like Harvard-Westlake was like more than Harvard because you just have so much going on, so much testing, and like that is like the big thing in terms of like work product. And all my college friends, no matter where they go, unless they did some insanely hard major where the content is harder, said Harvard-Westlake was harder than college. The content is harder in college, but the volume of work is not the same. And you learn how to like manage that, be super efficient. It helps me in my job every day. But Harvard specifically, I think that's where in Harvard and college in general is where you develop like the interpersonal skills and like, in whatever like job you go into in the working world. I think there's a lot of interpersonal skills that's involved. That's like building relationships and how to like, conduct yourself and like meeting different types of people, meeting people at their level, managing up, managing down. I have a really crazy manager right now. Anyway. But I think my mom told me this quote: in your life, first you get paid for what you know. sorry. First, you get paid for what you do. Second, you get paid for what you know. And lastly, you get paid for who you know. So I think Harvard-Westlake probably hits those first two boxes. And also the last one. I'm kidding. There's great connections at Harvard-Westlake people make later. So it hits all three. But I think in college, you really develop that skill of like making connections with a diverse group of people. Harvard-Westlake's diverse, but college is like another level of diversity. So I think that's what it really prepares you for, more so than like any quantitative skills like that.
Thank you. Thank you. Echo? Harvard-Westlake or Harvard? I like David's broadening of the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think Harvard-Westlake, of course, just prepared me to do a lot of work, but you also kind of live in a bubble there. You don't really know what the world's like. You have all these ideas about what you want to do, who you want to be, and then you get to college and it just kind of changes in an instant. So I think just having real world experience, kind of being on the other side of the United States for the first time, being around such different people, is truly just eye opening and will just teach you so much more about yourself as well as what you could do going forward.
George, you want to?
Yeah, just the thought of time that David touches on. At Harvard Westlake, you have more classes, you have more testing. There's less time to meet your people and to figure out what you want to do outside of school, figure out how school's going to help, weave it into your passions. And at any college, I reckon, there's going to be less time in class, less time testing than at Harvard Westlake. In that regard, you've conquered the demon once you get out of here. It's tough and it's super rewarding because then you get to that finish line, you get to wherever you wanted to go or wherever you end up, and you have more time to find yourself, find your people, and what you're really passionate about. So in that regard, things slowed down. Even though it's one of the hardest schools in the world, things really did slow down. You have more time. And the thought of what am I doing with my life now that I can slow down and think about it, that's the real prep. Who am I surrounding myself with? How am I preparing? What am I learning on my free time, in my free time? In that way, it prepared me in a different way. And to David's point, yeah, your productivity is never going to be maybe as high as it is at HW. It's a workhorse of a school, and it's really, really rewarding because of that. So things weave together, and once you get out of college, wherever you end up going, you're going to have a very full.
Yeah, I'd agree with all you guys. For engineering too, I mean, the content can be tough, but the amount of work that we did, there was only a semester or two where I was like, this feels like HW again. So it's definitely a step down. You have a ton of time. I think what I try to add to George's point is also that with time also comes like you having to determine what you're going to be doing, which can be difficult for people that have had every moment of their lives occupied. I think a lot of kids at Harvard-Westlake, for context, I help coach the water polo team there, and I help coach some of the age group water polo as well. And I see a lot of kids who quite literally don't have a moment of their lives unoccupied with scheduled activities, events, and whatever it may be. While that makes you insanely good at managing time and getting all of that stuff done, I do see some struggle when it comes to when you have this free will. Like, what do I do with this time? How do I kind of set things up for myself? For me, it was much more kind of organic. I think that I spent my freshman year kind of just bumbling around, and then by sophomore year, you kind of go, okay, well, this is a place of pretty much limitless opportunity. What am I going to do with it? And I think what's cool about Harvard is that if you're interested in a subject, you will find someone that is an expert in it, which is pretty cool. I was really interested in like space travel and Mars and what do what are humans doing to get onto Mars at the moment. And so I found a professor that was doing that, and I did my thesis with him because he was doing he was like figuring out how to cultivate algae in space so that we could use it as fuel and things like that. There's all this ridiculously in-depth and niche knowledge that you can spend the time to find, but you have to go out there and look for it because, like David said, there are plenty of people that go to Harvard and just do the easy track in economics. I've seen it with a lot of my teammates on the water polo team. They kind of just do the easy track in economics and they just kind of get through it, and then 4 years are done, and they've taken 13 requirement classes that aren't going to do much to prepare you. So I think you have to take a very active role in that sense.
Thank you. Well, I'm wondering, Quasi, if the people in the room there have any questions for our panelists.
Yeah, 9 minutes left, so this is the time for questions and answers, whether you're on Zoom or in the room. I told the ladies in the room we prioritize them, Daniel. So, do you guys want to go down the line with the question that you have? Or?
Okay. I was wondering if you had any comments. I was wondering if you had any comments about how the transition from Harvard-Westlake to Harvard is.
Harvard-Westlake to Harvard is. I know you
Like living across
a
the
little
country,
bit, but even
how
living across the country, just how is that?
Could you quickly repeat that? And could one of you guys mute your mics? Sorry, I just got a lot of feedback.
Okay.
Sorry.
Am I unmuted? Okay, I am. I was just wondering if any of you guys could talk about the transition from Harvard-Westlake to Harvard. I know you mentioned it a little bit, but even just like moving across the country, how is that?
Yeah, it's a big shift for sure. I moved to the States when I was like 14. So I moved to go to high school, or I moved at the same time as I was going to high school. And so that was kind of a fundamental change, and moving to Harvard was very similar in that way. I think what's really cool and also really scary is that you will probably go to Harvard and know maybe one or two people. So just being completely surrounded by 1,000 people that you don't know can be overwhelming, but it's also a very cool opportunity to meet a bunch of people. In terms of like being an adult and like doing your washing and like being like a functioning human being at school, it's pretty easy to figure out, especially once you realize that you have to do all those things and you get quite good at them. I guess moving away from family can be tough for sure. I think that there are plenty of opportunities to go home. Like George said, there's a lot more time, so you can use that time as you will, and make sure that you're still visiting the people that you care about. But yeah, I guess that would be my 2 cents.
The one thing I would add that like really got me the first year at Harvard was the weather. Like the fall and spring are gorgeous, but I'm born and raised in Santa Monica. I've never really like faced a true winter. It gets brutal. Like my hands are cracking. You're freezing all the time. So that got to be something that like you're okay with, and B, you're willing to kind of like prep for. Get the long coat, get the warm gloves or whatever. But it does get very cold.
And that nice spring and that nice fall are 2 of the nicest weeks of the year. And the rest is just brutal.
The rest is just it's seasonal depression.
Yeah. David,
I
anything
had
you
a
would
buddy's
add?
mom that
Oh, George.
gave me a pink Himalayan salt lamp, and when my first winter hit, I cranked that thing on, and the seasonal depression couldn't stop me. I'll tell you that. So that, and keeping in touch with family, and making a little time to go see them. With sports, they're going to be coming to some of your games, so I was lucky with that. But yeah, you got to make some time to call your family, no matter where you go to college. You got to tap in with your loved ones, and the
call your mom.
transition. Call your mom. It's going to be a lot easier for everyone.
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. I will say, wherever you choose your college, this always made me, I did not understand this for certain people. Like they couldn't go certain places because of the weather, or they wanted to go to a place because of the weather. Like that is like, I mean, no, just pick the school. Like the weather doesn't matter. It's cold, doesn't matter. People, like, don't worry about that. Or wherever you choose, if it's a place that's cold or just like, it is like of criteria, it is like so minimal.
And plus, you get to regale people back on the West Coast with stories about how tough you are.
All right, we got another question.
Sure. Yeah. Hi. I think
someone previously mentioned about like their interest in research at Harvard. So I'm just wondering at Harvard how accessible research is for specifically undergraduates.
Um, I can start with that. It's ridiculously accessible. Harvard is a school where I think there are like, what is it, guys? It's like 6,000 undergraduates, and then there are like 35,000 graduate students. I could be wrong on those numbers, but there are a lot of graduate students, is the point. So in that sense, there's a lot of research going on. For me, with engineering specifically, it was very easy to find a research position. I did it pretty late. I didn't even really spend a ton of time prepping for it. And if you go around and ask professors, they're always happy to hire you because you're free, and they don't have to pay you. And you're also very competent if you're already at the undergraduate level. So it's very easy. I assume you probably mean for clinical research and for the pre-med track. In that sense, I have a lot of friends who have done that as well, and it's very accessible. I don't think you'll have too much trouble finding a research position. I know a lot of people that start doing research their freshman years and stay with a lab basically for the whole time, and have had really fantastic experiences that's really helped them get into med school and kind of move forward with their careers there.
Did any of you work as research assistants or do any research for your thesis? Echo, I know you're only in your sophomore year, but for those of you who graduated.
Yeah, I did research for my thesis. I spent kind of it was about a year writing my thesis, and so that was working very closely with a professor. That meant, a ton of face-to-face contact with him, with, a brilliant professor who, works for NASA, very like competent human, which is a super cool opportunity. And that was, a position that was not too difficult to find. And it was also in a very specific field. Like I said before, I think if you're interested in any kind of field, be it biotech or engineering or computer science, you'll find fantastic professors that are going to want help with that too.
Yeah, I did a thesis, but it was like the research was like analyzing data sets. It wasn't like research. But on that note,
That
I would
counts.
also encourage. Oh, sorry.
I said that counts as research in my book.
I guess. I'd encourage people like teaching is really cool in college. A lot of like you can be like a course assistant or like teach sections or like host office hours. I think teaching is a really cool experience in school if you're able to do that. Yeah, I was like a tutor for one of George's like economics classes when he was a freshman. So
Echo, have there been any opportunities outside of your coursework for any research in the history of science?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty, and sometimes in the history of science they'll like offer to pay you, but it's just something that I haven't really had the time for yet, or that I'm necessarily too passionate about doing. But yeah.
I had a buddy, my freshman year roommate, that did immunology research for all 4 years. It was paid, and he ended up getting hired full time after college. So I mean, there's a breadth. There's unpaid, there's paid. It could be your dream job after school. There's a lot of those opportunities.
Wait, sorry. I guess maybe this is too niche, but if any of you guys, because I think Echo said that he was undecided, but like if any of you guys were either undecided or ever felt like lost, I guess in your first 2 years at Harvard, like how did that academic advising help you kind of like choose your path?
You all had to pick by the end of your first year. Is that not right?
No,
is
it's
that right?
halfway through your second year.
Halfway through your second. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, Echo, you were gonna say.
roughly.
Yeah, for me, I was kind of just taking whatever seemed interesting at first. On the rowing team, everyone was taking economics, so I took like 3 classes in economics, and I thought that was super interesting. And then I took a ancient medicine class. That was like a classics history of science. I just fell in love with the major from there. So I feel like you just kind of take what sounds interesting, what your friends are taking, and you'll learn what you love very fast, and you'll learn what you really don't love. So I think just like going in open-minded and not being too worried about having to find your perfect major right away.
I'd also add that while you get 4 classes per semester, and you could take 5 or 6 if you were crazy. But most majors are only going to be kind of from 13 to 17 class requirements, which just basically means that you have a lot of open classes, so you can start actually selecting your major pretty late. And even if you select a major, I know plenty of people that have picked kind of just a standard major by the sophomore year cutoff, and then switch their major pretty late in junior year. Depending on the major, you can do that, and it's pretty easy to kind of switch it up if you need to, especially if you discover something that you really like later on. The caveat is with engineering, it's harder to do that. It's definitely still doable, but the major is 24, 25 classes, so it's a little bit more. You have to kind of have figured it out by freshman year usually.
Well, thank you all. This was fun. We appreciate all your thoughts. Kwasi, how are we doing on time?
Yeah, I keep responding. I forget that I'm muted. We got about 3 minutes left. Are there any questions from the Zoom panel? I don't think I see any. There are no questions that have come in. So with that being said, George, Echo, David, Mott, thank you for providing your insight, your time, your expertise in the transition from Harvard-Westlake to Harvard. Daniel, thank you for moderating the discussion, keeping it orderly, and providing your insight. George, David, Echo, and Mott have been gracious enough to provide their contact info, so we'll share that with our current students and parents. Please don't flood their boxes with questions, but at the same time, they'll be happy to answer any questions. With that being said, if there isn't anything else, we're at that magic 3 o'clock PST hour where people say it's over. So with that being said, everyone take care. This will be on the HW Works YouTube channel. Will also be on the platform and resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. And Echo, if you ever take a class with Professor Labaga, say hi for me.
Will do.
Okay.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck in the process, everyone.